physical wealth. Hello, hello, hello. It is Fun Day Monday, and this is our new time. So, welcome to our new time. Okay, because this is just more convenient for me. I mentioned in my very first episode that you'll have to ring the bell, subscribe and ring the bell because, yes, she has a life. Can you imagine? But I'm going to come on and do these live streams for mental health and physical wealth. And just to prove to you that, yes, mental health is actually physical wealth. Hey, Facebook user, glad to see you here. If you don't mind telling me who you are so I can know what your name is, or you could stay, anonymous. That's good too. But today I want to get into something funny, okay? Because life is really serious and it's like too serious, like all the time. And I woke up laughing so hard. And I want to share that. Some people, they wake up crying. Some people wake up angry. Some people wake up and they just happy to be woke. They close their eyes like it's a video game. They open their eyes again later and time passed. They don't even know they went to sleep. Hey, Eric, I don't know which one you are, but I have my moments. I have my moments. Some people even talk in their sleep. Hi, Sean Anthony. Thank you all for joining. Y'all stay tuned. Stay tuned. This is an interactive show. So make sure you comment and ring the bell because you never know when I'm going to come on. I came on Saturday with Bobby Lee, and we talked about a few things like Corinthian colleges and whatever happened to the Corinthian colleges, what happened to the stockholders and stakeholders, and the students that invested in these colleges, and just a lot of stuff, and then how it led to perhaps some problems later, which or contributed to addictions. So definitely go back and watch those, because it's not to say that everybody has those same problems or whatever, that it leads to it, that it absolutely leads to it, but it can lead to it. Okay. So I have my handy dandy notes again. So we're going to have to, refer to my notes so I don't miss anything. So I'm trying to give people a chance to come in and definitely respond, because I don't know. It's like, in my opinion, there's two types of crazy. One is the, oh, you're so crazy. Get out of here. You're hilarious. You're so crazy. And then there's the, uh-oh, you crazy. Let's get out of here. So I toggle between it. That's how I know what it is. So I don't know what it's going to be today. Hey, Jackie, how you doing, sis? Hey, Bobby, I was just talking about you, bro. Okay, so I'm happy you guys are all here. Let's get to it. So I feel like people ask the wrong questions sometimes, and asking the wrong questions is fine, but ask the wrong questions that matter. Okay, like I don't know, I can ask the wrong questions so annoyingly. So but apparently that's why my husband married me, because I'm annoying. But anyway, now I'm not saying don't ask the wrong questions, because how can you know it's the wrong question unless you ask it? So but I am saying, ask questions that matter. For example, a lot of people, I said in the previous episode how people were asking about, oh, why Adam and Eve, how they got belly buttons and they the first people or whatever. But when I was studying various faiths, and it was like I was studying various faiths because I was in school, and in school you had to pick electives. I was like, I don't want to do no electives. I don't even want to be here, but I need to do this so I can better myself. So I'm here trying to better myself so I can get a better job. So now you want to force me to take electives? Ugh, how dare you, So anyway, I took Eastern studies. I had already studied Western studies of faith, and practiced Western faiths. So I was like, let me see what's up with the Eastern. I just thought it was going to be an easy A. You know, you don't want to take an elective that's difficult, right? So electives don't really count towards nothing but trying to make you look good. So I was like, when I was going through all of these things in the Bible, all these stories about Jesus and what Jesus did when he was here and everything, it was like there was this blind man, and his reaction to sight floored me. He said, when Jesus asked him, you know, well, what do you see? That man said, I see men as tall as trees. Now, me, this is just me. I'm like, what? If I would have saw men as tall as trees, I'd have been on the floor. I'd have ran. You'd have been asking me, what did I see? And I'd have been in the distance somewhere screaming, men as tall as trees, as I'm running and he could barely hear me. Because I don't know. Was he like born blind, or was it like this was his very first time, you know, seeing, so he didn't know like the estimate of how high or how tall or whatever, you know, men were. I don't know, because I'm not a Bible scholar. Okay, I'm a academic scholar, so I don't know, but I'm just saying these kind of things kind of like hit me like, what? They asking the wrong questions. Like, what you say, Eric? I took ethics elective, got me wondering. Hey, and you know what? Electives do some things. It really gets people's critical thinking skills just going. So I don't mind the electives so much now, because yeah, it does kind of make you look good at the same time of giving you critical thinking skills. But what about the leopard men? There was like 10 lepers, and I was like, Jesus, you gonna touch them? You know how you get leprosy? Like, yeah, I wouldn't want Jesus touching them, because Jesus clean and lepers are dirty, and that's how they got leprosy. And it's like, why are you gonna touch them when it's like, even in in different parts of his journey, he didn't even have to go and touch anybody. He didn't even have to be in the vicinity of like the girl who was possessed with demons and didn't have to be, you know, touched to be exorcised. And then the one girl who was dead, and he didn't have to actually even be in the vicinity to say, oh, wake up, girl, like he did with Lazarus, like, Lazarus, come out of the tomb. And it was like, wait a minute, I don't know, you gonna touch these lepers? So it was real bogus how Jesus actually touched them. And this was probably the first time they'd ever been touched before in like forever. And only one came back to say thank you. That's bogus. He was like, oh, that touch really did something for me, more than just heal me. It was the first time anybody has touched me since I got leprosy. So it was like, I had questions. Now, don't y'all go and start provoking your spiritual leaders with these questions. I'm just saying, don't do it. Don't do it. They might not be as friendly. But anyway, Rodney Jones is friendly. I didn't provoke him with these questions or anything, but I'm just saying, I know a few people who might not be as provoked. But I was also thinking, you know, how you get leprosy. Now, if he healed these people, is this like a leprosy repellent, or is it just a one time? If you do it again, you just gonna get it again? I mean, I don't know. I just had questions, and all these questions be going through my mind. And I just, you know, I sleep on it, and then I just wake up laughing because it's hilarious, because the jokes just keep coming. And it's not that I'm trying to be funny, it's that I'm trying to like figure it out. Like, wait a minute, that really puzzled me. Let me give that some thought. And unfortunately, my thoughts of trying to, you know, figure things out, my intellectual contemplation is always something hilarious, hysterical. I mean, because life is short. I mean, stuff is, you know, stressful. You don't want to be stressed all the time. Come on now. But it was like, at the time, it was a small world. What baby kids say, small world. Anyway, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you got to go and look that up. Baby Kids. It was a whole movie. That was wonderful. It was hilarious. But at the time, it was a small world. And it was like, how did the farmers that Jesus kept on tarrying with not understand what everybody else understood. So it's like, I understand being slow. I get it, because somebody will say something to me, or I'll see something, I'll misread it. You've seen that here on the show, and it's not clicking because I may be pressed. I may have a thought on my mind and I'm trying to remember that thought so I can convey that thought, and I'm misreading something or I'm not seeing it properly. And I'm like, wait a minute. Um, what? And then I'm like, oh, I got it. I understand. But it was like at no point in time in the Bible did it ever say that those farmers understood what Jesus was saying. He was speaking in parables, which was a succinct way of speaking so that people could understand what's being said. For example, if you work in like daycare and you constantly got to kind of like repeat yourself, and you tired of repeating yourself, you say something like, when they're not at work and they're repeating themselves to like adults, and it's like, man, you just have to speak to them in the way that they understand. Like, all day you at work talking to little kids who don't understand. So just apply that same mentality to these adults that you're speaking to who don't understand what you're saying. And then it's like, okay, now I have a better understanding of what you're saying. Hey, Natasha, thank you for being here. I know it's a little late, but this is just a better time for me. So I appreciate you all being here. Have you ever had a time where it was like you had studied something, especially in faith, in your religious studies, and it was like you had these questions that just kind of bugged you and kind of egged you on to like be provoked to maybe consider asking somebody these questions? Now, I'm not going to say I asked anybody these questions, because if I did, it'd probably be some running gags going on in the church as an icebreaker, like with these very questions. But it's like when Jesus spoke in parables, people didn't understand what parables were. It was like, what is a parable? A parable? What is that? It's just a really easy way to relate what you're not understanding to something you already understand by using these examples. So our formal logic helps us to understand like what we're doing in the moment, but it doesn't necessarily translate to the things that we are trying to do. So that was just an easier way for Jesus to try to like get them to understand you know, a little bit better. But the farmers didn't understand the parables, but it's like free will. It's like we're still trying to digest that one. What does it mean to have free will? And it's like, their free will prevented them from actually understanding everything that everybody else already understood. And it's like, but Jesus did what? He kept staying with them. He kept working with them. And it's like, goodness, how did he ever have time to do anything else when these people are exercising their free will to deliberately not understand, in my opinion? Now, if everybody's getting it but you got to imagine that you just willfully ignorant, or you willfully don't understand because you just want, that attention, that time, and the constant, asking somebody something, constantly pestering somebody to see if you could get under their skin. But Jesus was like, he just looked up at God like, for real, God, really? I don't know if you read that part of the Bible, but you got to go back and read it. It's like when he was talking to the farmers and the farmers weren't getting it, he looked up at God. He was like, and he laughed. It was like, wow, I caught that. Some people were saying all the time that the Bible was hard to read. It's hard to understand. I can't understand it or whatever, but I'm not the brightest bulb in the bunch. But when I read that part and I caught them like laughing, having a little inside joke, if you will, because they didn't get it. So, and they was in the midst, but it was an inside joke because only Jesus and God understood. Like, really, really though. It was hilarious. So I do believe that God has jokes, and so did Jesus. But anyway, it's like all the miracles that Jesus performed, it couldn't change people's free will. Now, that was a takeaway that I was getting in all of these jokes. and all of these things that I was like trying to understand what was going on. It was like, man, apparently, no matter how many things Jesus did and how much he tarried with people, how much he tried to help people, it just didn't change their free will. So whatever they wanted, it seems like that was more the running theme. Those people who wanted to believe, they didn't even need Jesus in the vicinity. Those people who wanted to believe and actually believed, they needed even less. They was like, you already, Jesus told the woman who had the daughter who was dead and the one who was possessed, he was like, it's already done. All you had to do was speak into existence that your faith, and boom, it's done. And I don't even have to do anything else. Just like say less. Like, really? So it was a running theme that I noticed. I don't know what you noticed, but like I said, I could be a little crazy sometimes. So maybe I saw something, crazy. And that's what I saw. People's free will being perpetuated throughout all the stories of the Bible. And it was like, seeing this free will, how does that translate into this modern time? Like everything we're doing now and all of the decisions that we're making now. And studying psychology and even as an anthropologist perspective, I'm looking at everything, social, cultural. I'm looking at linguistics and how it plays a part and how people communicate in the different dialects. I'm looking at various aspects, but who knows what an anthropologist is? So I just study psychology, and that's what I communicate, is the psychology of it, the study of the human mind and behavior and the various aspects that may contain. However, it's cross-cultural, and it's in business, and it's in the various developmental stages of the human lifespan. It's also a few other things, and that's why it's called anthropology, because it's like you studying all of it: work, school, and sometimes people don't relate school and work under the same umbrella. I don't know why, because don't you go to school and some people work at a school, not just attend school as a student? But I'm just saying, apparently that's just news to some people. But anyway, not you, but some of the scholars I had to deal with. But anyway, apparently it's new, but it's not now because it's globally trending. Anyway, what is it? What it was. Okay, so there was this one woman who was like, she touched Jesus' garment, and it's like she was healed just touching his garment. How many people touch Jesus? What happened to them? I'm just asking, because when I found that out, I was like, man, so did everybody get a little something when they touched Jesus? It wasn't just his garment, though, that they was touching. It was some people who were with him who actually touched him, not just his clothing, not just like a piece of his clothing, but actually touched him. And it's like, what happened with them? Did they get a little something? And that's kind of like what scientists want to know, so that they know how to control, manipulate, and actually recreate it. So that's one of the things that psychologists do. Anthropologists kind of look at it from an observatory perspective just to see what's going on. But that's why I toggle between things, because I'm just curious about a whole lot of things. So I try to do things as I'm studying. I try to be open-minded about a whole lot of different things, but still some things puzzle me. Some people, when they're puzzled, they get upset. Are you one of those people with something, when you don't understand something and you get upset and you start saying things and you get angry and start acting out in different type of ways? Well, some people, I don't know, but I guess sometimes I have my moments. But I don't know if Jesus was cold talking when he said, let the first person who he said, he without sin, let them be the first to cast a stone, when that woman who had committed adultery in a small world or a small town, Like, let him throw the first stone. Was he cold talking? That's what came to my mind. I'm just saying that's what came to my mind when he was like, who here doesn't have? Because if it's a small town and it's a small world, quite frankly, because it was still, pre-early stages of world population. So they all get mad at this adulterous woman for being an adulterer. It's not like she going around saying, give me the D. You know what I'm saying? She not going around talking about you give it to your wife, you gonna give it to me too. Like, wait a minute. So was Jesus cold talking when he was like, yeah, whoever whoever cast the first stone, he better not have no sins, because the next stone gonna be thrown at you. I think that, I'm just saying, because a lot of times we try to disassociate ourselves from these past writings, these historical writings and examples that are faith-based. And it's like, you try to disassociate yourself, but put yourself in them shoes. Like right now, if you're in a small town and it's this one chick that's an adulterer and everybody trying to, rat on her because, oh, you're an adulterer, you should be stoned to death. Come on, man. Come on. If it's a small town, who's she committing adultery with? Crickets. Crickets. You can't hear nobody. When Jesus was like, throw the first stone, nobody threw the stone because crickets. Everybody was busy listening to the crickets and watching squirrels and chasing rabbits down rabbit holes. But I'm just saying, it's not like she was forcing anybody to, do anything with her. It's a whole new meaning to but the whole thing gives a whole new meaning to a whole lot of things, like asking the wrong questions, finger pointing, and it gives a whole new understanding to community D, or community property, where people's body parts. And it gives a whole new meaning to the whole idea of you're part of a team. People be thinking that the whole idea of you're part of a team started with these various songs, these modern songs with holes in different area codes, and your baby mamas and all this. It's nothing new. It's in the Bible. Like, y'all on the whole team and don't even know. Like, what? That was in the Bible? Y'all better go read. Y'all better go read. With Jesus, and if you don't know what to Google this. Jesus said, he without sin cast the first stone. Now, I'm not quoting it, so don't think that that's going to actually appear in that actual sequence. Don't think that, but it's in there like that some kind of way. I'm just saying. But again, let me throw that warning out there. Don't provoke spiritual leaders with these questions. I'm just saying, they're gonna have you on the altar like, what did you just say? You said something real crazy. So it might not end well. So he might, do it in front of the whole congregation, and you'll fool around and find out the real deal. Like, man, I thought that pastor was a joke, but he put that person who asked them stupid questions, the wrong questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question, but you asked the wrong question to the wrong spiritual leader. You're going to find out that spiritual leader about it. That spiritual leader got the real Jesus in them. And they going to cast out every demon, and the whole congregation going to be having their phone up like, look, as they watching all the demons like, oh, look at that little one. Y'all going to be like, man, I didn't even know that was a real thing. Casting out demons. Like, hey, if it happened in the Bible, just like adultery and all this other stuff, murdering your siblings and stuff like that, if all of that happened in the Bible, then I'm not just saying it just to be funny. I'm saying for, mental health, like these things that we're dealing with now today actually existed back then, but somehow we keep disassociating ourselves from those ancient times, which were at the time modern, just as modern as our times are today. So stop disassociating yourselves, because if you ask your spiritual leader one of these really crazy questions that may have some point to it. It may be relevant. You might be one of them ones that the preacher find out, wait a minute, that's the devil, Bobby Boucher. Bobby Boucher, that's the devil. I don't know. I'm just saying it could be, it might not be. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm saying I'm still working towards my own what the Bible say, with fear and trembling every day. Work out your own salvation. Every man's got to work out their own salvation. But these are some questions that I had. But I'm not saying you must be a demon if you must be demon possessed to ask these types of questions. I'm just suggesting that you avoid provoking your spiritual leader with these questions because it might not end well. I'm just saying, I'm not saying the demons jumping off on you and because you got these questions. I'm just making jokes, trying to understand some things. I know I'm not the only one that makes jokes at things they don't understand or don't digest as fast as others. But this is the era of fool around and find out, among other things, like just make it make sense. And in my mind, that's what I was doing all the time as a child. Now, these were things that I thought of that stuck with me throughout from childhood. And it kind of just stuck with me because it's hilarious. When they say raise a child in the way it should go so they won't depart when they're a grown up or whatever. Yeah, these jokes, these ideas stuck with me. But anyway, now back to asking the wrong questions. And yes, these are the wrong questions I asked and when I learned about these things. So if you don't have like questions when you learning something, for example, when I was younger, I learned about this thing called mnemonics. Mnemonics are tools to help people remember things that can be complex, meaning multiple levels of difficulties in understanding the information or digesting it. You may not digest all the information in the moment. You may need more time to digest these things. So mnemonics were used to help associate these things that were difficult to understand with something that would be easier for you to understand, even if only to bring up that difficult memory again. And these jokes help to bring up these difficult things to understand for a later time. So all it really did was made me remember all of these things. So I use mnemonics all the time in this way. Some people may do different things. Some people do name association. I have difficulty remembering people's names. So I may use a mnemonic to help me attach that understanding of memorizing that person's name to that memory. Some people say, oh, when you tell them that your name, they say, oh, I have an auntie that was named that. Yeah, I didn't like her. So now they don't like you. But anyway, they're remembering what your name is. And some people, what they do is they do a repetition. You'll tell them your name and then they'll repeat that and they'll keep repeating it in throughout the conversations, even though it's kind of like out of context because they're constantly repeating your name when just saying it the one time was sufficient. But anyway, it's different ways. This is my way. You can call it crazy. You can call it hilarious. You can call it stupid. You can call it whatever you want. I'm not offended. Okay. But anyway, I just wanted to share that part so you'll understand why these jokes, how is it that I was able to remember these jokes so freshly now. And it's like long over. But anyway, it was like this woman in the Bible I couldn't understand. And it was like this woman washed Jesus' feet. And it's like, everybody got something for doing something for Jesus. And I was like kind of disturbed because I'm like, man, she didn't get nothing. Now, the woman who touched him in his garment, she got healed. The blind man got healed. The lepers, okay, the lepers got healed and probably leprosy repellents. But, for a future. But anyway, everybody got something like that SNL. Everybody's getting something. But anyway, everybody got something. But the woman who washed Jesus' feet, what did she get? she got a chance to live. I mean, because that's like, you're not a woman wasn't supposed to be washing no man's feet like that, but she did. And Jesus and the guys was like, oh, this woman, she's out of order. She's out of order. We're gonna do something about that. And Jesus was like, whoa, 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 whoa. She knew better and she performed accordingly, whereas none of y'all did. So y'all leave her alone. Let her do what she doing. She ain't doing nothing wrong. But it was like, wow, that's all she got. I'm just saying. I was expecting something a little bit more grandiose, something more, like flamboyant, something more like miracle type of, not just, it's all right. I'll allow it. I'm just saying. I was just, floored because I'm like, man, that's all. So it made me really realize how women were really treated. And it's not really fair. Let me bring up this point. I've seen a lot of times where we're talking a lot about how women are having abortions and people so upset about that now after the pandemic because the numbers are low in the population. But anyway, I'm not seeing a whole lot of how men are doing something to protect the women. Make sure that the women are not being raped. Make sure the women are not being molested. Make sure that the women are just protected. Make sure that they have food and shelter and making sure that they're, but you want to tell them about not have their decision of what they do with a baby. Come on. You're not making sure that your boy isn't going around making her an unwittingly part of a team where he's sleeping with everybody and having babies with everybody and she doesn't know it. Now, Wildin' Out star, I'm not going to say his name, but he let everybody know that you're part of a team. But when I'm with you, but we all having these babies and all these are my babies. So they knew what they were getting themselves into. But it's a lot of women out here who don't know. But your boy know. But your boy not telling old girl. So then when she get in a situationship, now she wants to go and end any kind of memory that she can possibly erase to control something that's going on in her life, something that's going on wrong in her life. Not everybody's angry and want to just control her decisions. I'm not cool with that. Mainly because you're not doing it for the purpose of anything other than controlling her. You're not trying to control your male peers. You're not trying to control anything but her. Much like these things that happen in the Bible, when the woman doing the right thing, and all the men gathered around her talking about, you should be washing Jesus' feet. That's somebody else's job. What you doing even being up in here? And it's like, wait a minute. You could have said something that was more loving and kind and made sure that I feel like you protected me. But that's not what happened. And that's not what's happening even now today. The women are not feeling protected like they need to in order to make these decisions. How about you bring up the fact that a woman, when she's pregnant, she's created a bond unwittingly to this child, regardless of how the child got in her womb. It's a bond now that you'll never be able to sever. And you'll never forget this child. You'll never stop loving this child. Tell a woman something like that and let her feel like you love her and you care about her mental health as well as her physical health. Don't keep trying to control women and think this is the Bible days, like before Jesus and during Jesus. This ain't those days. Women are going to do whatever they want to do. Now, men who love them and take care of them and helping them, you talk to them. Don't keep letting these people sit there and say crazy things to these women and they'll just go and do whatever they want to do just to spite you. Has nothing to do with the fact that that's a decision that they wanted to make. It has everything to do with the fact that they didn't want to be controlled, so they made that decision. Now, this woman who washed Jesus' feet, she was like, if I die, I die. And it was so many times in the Bible where women said that if I perish for doing the right thing, I perish. We need to stop with that because Jesus didn't come for that. And even in that situation, we can see that Jesus wasn't in agreement with that. He wasn't saying, oh yeah, this is the way that you should keep doing. He changed it up to help you understand. That's a very narrow-minded perspective, and we need to stop that. And our free will not be taken away from us. So we need to accept people's free will. And when we see that they're doing something that may harm them, that's what you lead with. Don't lead with something controlling. Now I'm off my soapbox. Let's go back to the wrong questions. So when Peter saw Jesus walking on tumultuous water, it's like storming. And have you ever seen waters in the storm? It's like really crazy. It's waves and it's splashing and it's high, really big high waves, and boats are just going, and it looked like it's going to topple over or all the water is going to pour into the boat and sink the boat. But anyway, Jesus was walking from somewhere, and I was like, where is he coming from? How is he walking on water? Why is it so important for him to be walking on water in order to get to this boat to catch up with these guys, these 12 disciples that he was like, look, I'm going to get y'all together and y'all going to be fishers of men. Like, what? That's deep. That's deep, because they were fishermen fishing for fish to feed their families. But now he's going to make these 12 men disciples for the good word, sharing God's love. And he said, I'm going to make you fishers of men. That's deep. That's deep. But anyway, I'm like, where in the world was Jesus coming from? First off, how did you lead them and tell them, go ahead, while you go do so, you'll be back? Like, this ain't that kind of time. This wasn't that era where you'll be like, oh, I just catch the next bus. I'll catch the next ride. No, dude, this is the only boat available, Jesus. So Jesus, where was he coming from? He was coming from Africa. And in Africa, he already said the good word. He already shared the good word with them. And what is his name? John S. Mabiti. He was an African, somewhere a little bit after Jesus' time, where he had came to express what was told to the Africans, even though there were multiple tribes. That's what took Jesus so long. That the 12 disciples was like, yeah, Jesus, you walking on water. What's up with that? He's like, I'm trying to catch up with y'all. What? And Peter saw him. He was like, man, Jesus, I want to walk on water. I want to walk on water. Now, this is my thing. This is the part that kind of like bugged me. Like, Peter, do you know how to swim, bro? Do you know how to swim? Like, if you don't know how to swim, or you might not know if you're strong enough to swim in this kind of tumultuous water, maybe you should ask Jesus two questions. Jesus, make me a really strong swimmer, but let me walk on the water. I'm just saying, if you go ask some outrageous type stuff, ask the right questions. Ask the right questions. Maybe it's the wrong questions, but it's for the right reason. It's questions that matter. Like, do you see this water? So when Peter started to walk on the water, because Jesus was like, all right, come on. You have my permission to walk on the water. Come on with me. Yeah, Peter, he was like, just looking at Jesus, like, oh, Jesus, let me walk on the water. And he's like reaching out for him. And Jesus like, yeah, come on. And he's like, got his hand out to him. And he reaches for his hand and he's walking and everything. Then he realizes he's on the water. Peter is walking on the water. He ain't Jesus. Peter not Jesus. You walking on the water, Peter. And then Peter, what he do? Just like in every Tom and Jerry commercial, not commercial, but cartoon, he looks down, and what happens? That's when he falls. Have you ever made that connection? How the cartoons, the Western cartoons, kind of have these little innuendos, and one of those was related to the Bible, at least this one, where you kind of like in the motion of walking on air, walking on water, just doing something really fantastic. But it's not until you realize it and realize that it was impossible that then you fail. I don't know. Maybe that was just me. Maybe I'm just crazy. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just accustomed to asking the wrong questions, and that stuff just spills over into everything that I'll be watching or something. I don't know. Or everything I'm trying to do. But I was just floored by, the fact that Peter failed to ask like the most pertinent question, like, Jesus, make me a strong swimmer, but let me walk on water. And the reason why that was significant is because sometimes I would be in church or in some sort of religious group. I had friends from diverse cultures who practice diverse faiths, and we would all talk. And when we talk, it would come up and it would come out. And I'm like, well, some people say, God, move the mountain, but give me the strength to climb. And some people just say, God, give me the strength to climb this mountain, even though they know they don't want to, they don't want to go through all that. They don't want to go. So why don't you just ask, instead of those wrong questions, why don't you just ask, hey, God, why don't you just let everything be real cool? Forget Adam and Eve's sins. We long past that. Let's just start living this life like it's golden, like you originally intended for it to be. Let us experience those things and forget about the curses. Look, it's been generations. Let's stop that. Let's start living like this and see what that feels like in this flesh. It's not enough people asking that question. Some people want to go back to the Garden of Eden, and I've heard that. But and then the eclipse made a whole lot of people feel like we're about to be raptured, which I could not understand for the life of me. And that brought up some really funny ideas. Like, yeah, what did you think? Like, the lights was going to go dark. It was going to go pitch black. And suddenly when you open your eyes, it's going to be some people scattered around who only thing left for them is their clothes. But what if, now that's what people were thinking, but what if when all the lights went out and the total eclipse occurred, what if the people who got raptured, somehow you forgot completely everything about them, even their existence, everything, you just completely forgot? What if that was the case? Now, I'm probably messing with people's head right now, but that was something that I thought about. I was like, what if everybody's, because it was written in the Bible that no man will know the day or the hour when God is going to, call for his people, when Jesus is going to come and say, hey, Jesus calling us to go inside now. It's time to stop playing outside. You've been a kid before, and you've been a part of a group where they said, oh, time to come in the house now. It's time to come in the house. Mom's calling, dad's calling, it's dinner time or whatever. So it's like that. And it's like, what if we forgot those people like completely? We forgot they even existed. What if that would have been the case? Because no man's going to know the day or the time or the hour, but we knew when the eclipse was going to happen. And it seems like there may be some sort of relevance to it, which is why people were associating it with that. So it's like, wow. I'm just saying, I have questions, and these questions end up being really funny. I should say I had questions because the eclipse happened a long time ago. In my youth, I've seen a couple. So I had questions in those times. And now that social media is more popular and more prominent globally, we all seem to have those shared ideas and understandings. So I was looking for that one to come across, and I didn't see it. Maybe it's because I'm the only lunatic out here. I'm just saying. But anyway, it's like Jesus only took 12 disciples. Let's go back to my wrong questions. I know it's a small world, but it's a gang of believers. And at this point, it's like, can you imagine, like, Pangea not only didn't take place, but not so long ago, and it's still taking quite a while for people to populate and go into diverse places and populate those areas. And it's like, at this moment, the gang of believers that there are kind of outweigh the the areas. So it's like Jesus only took 12 disciples, and he told each of those 12 men, go in individual directions, spreading the good news alone. So this was another one of those running things that was just like eating at me via these understandings of these various stories, how it would kept on being that it was just one, just one, just one, just one. So you had 12 disciples out of the gang of people who believed, but you just took 12 and said, now each of you go in your individual direction. And it's like, wait a minute, can we get the gang of people to come with us? Because I don't want to be alone. It seems like the message of a little goes a long way is constantly being drilled into everyone's understanding, yet people seem they can't tolerate times of being alone. What's up with that? What is that about? It's like if you're alone, sometimes people, I've said it in various episodes, sometimes people can be around a gang of people and a crowd of people and they can feel like they're alone. And that really messes with them mentally and emotionally. However, if we go back into these Bible days and these historical times that's written in these sacred books of faith, we'll see that oftentimes, majority of the time, even because it's very rare that it wasn't, that one person would go away from everybody else and then they will come back with a more in-depth understanding, a more knowledgeable foundation to build on. And they have these unbelievable intellectual contemplations that lead to advancements beyond what that modern era could have ever have produced. And we're still growing from that information, those intellectual contemplations. We're still growing from that. And that was like so long ago, it was like ancient. And it's like we're still coming to digest a lot of that information. And that was just one person by themselves who was alone. But we're constantly around people. We're constantly surrounding ourselves with people and being around a lot of noise that's being generated, a lot of distractions that's keeping us away from being alone. But back then, because even now we'll say things like, oh, you used to believe you could fly until someone pointed out you weren't even born with wings, or you run slower than anybody I've ever seen. But before that, your mindset, you believed that you could fly. You believed that you were doing something significant. And in doing that, you kept progressing in that manner. And eventually, I'm sure you would have probably did just like those other people in the past did. You would have had some sort of intellectual contemplation that would have catapulted the era beyond the modern time. But, I don't know. I don't know if anybody else has had those particular thoughts as of yet, but I have seen some people kind of mention it, and it's like, man, why you destroying my dream? Let me dream, man. I believe I can fly. Let me just run with that. Like, where'd you Downton Abbeys come from? Go away. Let me be great. They won't let me be great. And it's like, yeah, but what are you doing about it? You still stand around them same people and allowing them to not allow you to be great. Nobody else was allowed to be great. Jesus wasn't allowed to be great. The lepers weren't allowed to be leopards. The blind man wasn't allowed to be blind. I'm just saying, we are looking for things in the wrong way. We're asking the wrong questions, and it's really messing up our minds. And don't forget, let me put that disclaimer out there. Do not provoke your spiritual leader with these kind of questions, because it might not end well. But it is good for you to have such intellectual contemplation, because quite some time ago, I know a lot of people may get the names wrong, but a lot of times names repeat themselves. So Martin Luther and Calvin, which were back in long before Martin Luther King Jr., Martin Luther considered manual labor to be something more like not a job, because in my idea, he felt like that's something you just got to do all the time. You got to do that every day. How you going to live in your house if you don't have a house? You got to build it. That's manual labor. If the if the roof is leaking, you have to fix the roof. You can't wait for somebody to come over to your house and fix the leaking roof. If the sink is, flooding over and the water is spurting everywhere, you have to fix that. You can't just wait for somebody to come over there and fix it for you. But it's the intellectual contemplation that was really the profound method of resource, because these thoughts that people were having, even when you asking the wrong questions, like I was asking, as a kid, and I'm sharing with you what I thought about way back then, as is relating to today, the whole make it make sense era that we're in, and the fool around and find out era that is currently trending. It's like, why is it that we're not getting these running themes? Why is it that we're overlooking these things? Like, one person should be alone in order to have these intellectual contemplations instead of being distracted by the bunch. There's a time to be with a bunch of people, and there's a time to be alone. That time may be undesignated. You may not want to be alone that long. You may not want to have that intellectual contemplation, because a lot of times that, while I'm joking around about these things, a lot of times these thoughts hurt, and you're thinking about things and you're like, man, that's really sad. That baby girl died and she was believing in God and in Jesus, that God sent Jesus, but she still died. That's sad. But think about it this way. Jesus didn't even have to turn up. Jesus was like, it's already done. It's like, what? We oftentimes take a dark mentality and perspective on things, and it's led to a situation where it's a lot more difficult to see the good in a lot of the trials and tribulations that we are bound to endure. And it's like, who are you to be different than to go through these bad experiences? But it's written, God will turn everything for your good. So regardless of how difficult it is, regardless of how much somebody's trying to take things from you, take away things you earned, deny you the things that you earned, prevent you from being happy in any way they possibly can, target you, whatever it is that they feel like they can control, it's like, we are mentally allowing it in so many ways. I've seen a few things where people who were incarcerated, and they would say, well, how did you make it out of that situation? I know it was hell on earth. And the people would say, well, they can incarcerate my body, but they cannot incarcerate my mind. That's a profound understanding, because that is attached to your free will. The way you think, that a man believeth, so is he. So basically what is being said is, if you believe that you are locked up, you're incarcerated just like your body is, then your mind will also be locked up. Some people don't even have to be incarcerated or behind bars for them to already be mentally incarcerated, because we're conditioned to think and feel and react and behave in a certain way that's contradicting to our formal logic, which innately tells us this is not right. This is not going to end well. This is not the end or the outcome that you're trying to strive for. But you feel compelled to do that. And why do you feel compelled to do that? Now, y'all going to have to watch for my book and get you a copy and go and look at all of the other things that I wrote academically. Look for Tina Phillips. I wrote some things. They're out there as public records and public information that you don't have to pay for. You have to pay for the book, though. Yeah, that's because it's conveniently located in just that one little thing. So you got to pay for that. But I'll tell the truth for free. You have to buy into the solution, though, because right now we're seeing a lot of people are trying to force people to do things where psychologists and ancient philosophers have already saw that whole thing about free will, God wasn't playing with that. Your free will cannot be incentivized, motivated, controlled in any other way. It is a phenomenon. It is uncontrollable by men. It's uncontrollable by men. You cannot control it. You can't stop it from happening. You can't control the outcomes. You can't control it to create. You cannot control it. And because of it, God's constantly showing us. It's a running thing. It's a running gag even. It's like, oh, you thought you was in control? Watch this. Watch this. Oh, you made a whole doomsday clock? Watch this. Watch this. I got something for you. Oh, you gonna predict what culture is gonna be in the highest population? Watch this. Watch this. I got something for you. You cannot, just like the Tower of Babel in the Bible, where it was like, oh, we don't want to die, God, for you to, come kick it with us, for us to see you, talk to you, be in your vicinity physically. We're going to build this tower and we coming. You're going to have visitors. We ringing the doorbell. We at the gate. Come on, Jesus, let us in. You said you was making room. Come on. Let us in. Let us see how far you get. No. God was like, oh, really? That's how y'all feel? Y'all got jokes. Y'all got jokes. Watch this. Watch this. And he come out with a bigger joke. He's like, oh, okay. Now, can you understand each other? It's like, can you hear me now? Can you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? So even though we fail to understand and fail to get these running themes, we fail to have the intellectual contemplation that's required of us in order to not have these dark spirited mentalities and lead a better life despite the obstacles we're going through and we endure, and the obstacles that obstruct us, we steady going through that obstacle instead of going around. Just go around, walk around. There's another way. So instead of us doing that, we constantly, well, God, you're going to move in this way. You're going to move. You did this. You're going to do. You can't move God. You can't make him move. And then when we try to do that, God write it down. He's like, oh, okay, you thought you had jokes. Now I'm bringing this up later when I show you what's even funnier than what you just did, like the Tower of Babel. And it's like, there's so many examples in the Bible, and there's so many examples even with Siddhartha. Siddhartha was in the Buddhist nation. He was the highest Buddha they ever acknowledged. And it was funny because, not funny as in hysterical, but funny as in ironic, how people thought that they were going to control something yet again. And God was like, you are not in control, people. You don't have the power or authority in order to control what's happening. I'm still in control. Even though I allow certain things, it's my permissive will that you are allowed to do these things. So when those people figured, okay, we're going to kill everybody in Siddhartha's family and we're going to take over the kingdom. So they dethroned them by killing them. And then Siddhartha, they didn't know Siddhartha was not there. They thought they had got everybody. But then Siddhartha, now this is in the books. These are the in the sacred books and studies that you can go and read for yourself. But man thought that they could control something, and God said, not so. We oftentimes don't believe how other people can believe in the same God that we believe in, that God sent Jesus, that God. But it is worldwide, it's global. And it was even in Africa where it was multiple tribes, and people thought that the Africans were worshiping the devil and doing all this witchcraft and things of that nature. That was not the case. Find out who John S. Mabiti is and go read about that if you have ideas of what was really transpiring in Africa. If you believe that it was all witchcraft or whatever, find out, read some books, read about some people. Why is John S. Mabiti even important in such a history of African religion? Think about that. But I don't have much time here, only have less than a minute. But all of these things are, in my perspective, funny, and that's how I remember to go on. Let me go back and look at that again. Well, let me go revisit that. Well, let me see and get a deeper understanding let me see if I can get a more profound understanding of this situation. We're not doing that. And that is leading us to a darker mentality and mean-spirited behavior, whereas we're not understanding how that's contributing to a failing global economy, because we didn't see the connection of how it was relative to have a positive spiritual mentality, a positive spirited behavior, as opposed to being a little bit more nonchalant about someone else's life and their pursuit of happiness. But anyway, that's been my time for today. I apologize for all the people who may have been looking for me at 5 o'clock like I would normally come on, but that's why you got to ring the bell, because sometimes life changes and I'm like, well, even though I'm a little bit more busier and I don't really have the time, I'm still going to make the time. So these are recorded, so you can go back and watch whichever recording you want and binge watch the episodes. But always remember that you are free to come in and speak and comment. And yes, please go and get Eddie's books. He did write about Africa. And a lot of times people don't understand their approach, may be off-putting, but we cannot keep going in the same direction expecting different results. So it would be nice if you were to go and read Eddie's book and see the 101 history questions. It's presented as a question, but it's actually giving you answers and the questions, and it's giving you a little bit more profound understanding as to what actually transpired in Africa. And that, why is that important? Because that was the motherland where all the cultures derived from, and they were there at some point, and they continue to grow from there. So there's a foundation there that needs to be understood better. So make sure you try to check that book out as well. And remember, come back every episode. I'm going to come on Monday. So if you didn't see me at 5 o'clock, keep watching. But it's on Monday. Anyway, until next time, remember, mental health is physical wealth. Mental health is physical wealth.